of doctors that are not taking Medicare patients anymore.
The first thing that happens when you repeal this Obamacare is that the $500 billion that Barron Hill voted to cut from Medicare would be restored.
As I understand it, it's pretty difficult to repeal a law that's already on the books. And based on some of the comments you made earlier this evening, it sounded like you were going to try to pick portions of this bill out and maybe defund it, but not repeal the whole law. So are you saying that you're going to try to make lemonade out of these lemons with what we have, or do you think you can actually repeal this?
It's going to take quite a majority to be practical about this. It's going to take a very significant majority, and maybe all of you can be part of just a historic landslide election here where we do have the majority to make that happen. But I don't think anyone's predicting there will be sufficient majority right now to repeal the entire thing in one Congress. But we can try. I'll be part of an effort to do everything we can to eliminate some of these worst provisions. Now, I'll tell you, so many of the taxes start almost immediately in this health care legislation in order to make it look like it's more balanced in terms of our budget. And then the actual concrete provisions, the individual mandate, for example, requiring you to buy insurance, don't begin until a couple of years out. So I see a window of opportunity. I actually think we might have 2 bites at the apple, 2 election cycles, to get a sufficient majority to make some really fundamental change.
Got to change the president. Get President veto.
We may have a presidential election there to throw in the mix. So I don't have a crystal ball. I mean, I'm a first-time candidate, and I'm really not a politico. So I guess we probably have to look at the polling and whatnot and determine, what sort of majority we could get by that time. But I'm hopeful. I think the more the American people learn about this health care legislation, the less they like it. And ultimately, we're going to get this thing repealed because the American people themselves will demand that it gets repealed. And that's a good thing, because people are speaking up, they're stepping up, and they're having their voices heard. Yes, sir.
Yes, Todd. I do volunteer work for AARP. I've been doing it for about 5 years now. And Barron Hill, or anybody that I've ever talked to, and I've talked to him on several occasions, and even the people that I'm associated with out in Indianapolis, I don't hear anybody addressing or understanding, what 2 of the biggest problems are with Social Security, running out of funding, is, of course, when it was initiated in 1934 and 35, the life expectancy was like 62. Now you've got people living to be 80, 90 years old. And then the second thing was never part of the equation are myself, the baby boomers. There's no way that they, without something being done, there's no way that they can sustain the system, past a certain time. Because those 2 things were never part of the equation when Social Security went into effect. And if they want to call it a Ponzi, Ponzi scheme, then so be it. But there's going to have to be the age I would think would have to be raised, or more taxes paid in, simply because those 2 things were never looked at.
Yeah. Well, I'd say, sir, and thank you for your question. Very well received. Is Barron Hill has decided to make this, rather than the issues that I hear most on voters' mind, stimulus, cap and trade, Obamacare. He's tried to make this an issue of the election, but he has absolutely no plan himself. And he's been in office for 10 years, how he's going to reform this. So I would say, Barron, first present me with your 10-point plan. Tell us, since you've already indicated that we start with increasing taxes, tell us who you're going to raise taxes on and by how much.
Yeah.
And then we can have an honest dialogue about this very important issue.
Sure. And that's really my problem. Those 2 points, they say, a lot of people don't understand or are missing the point that they've got 2 things that they cannot change. And, Barron Hill in the past is just, we'll worry about it later. Well, later's already here.
Yeah. It says it all. Yes, sir. Yes.
Now, I saw a report the other day on 60 Minutes that's really been bothering me about how large the Medicare, Medicaid fraud is. Fraudulent claims like the state of Florida. Billions of dollars. It's surpassing the drug problem and revenue all over the country. As a new member of Congress, would you be willing to have this somehow or another looked into? I was shocked to see at how few agents and people there are to even question a fraudulent claim. And there is money being taken, and how lenient they're punished. I was completely stunned about this. That's billions and billions of dollars that can be put back in for the use of what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I'm just perplexed to see that our own federal government cannot monitor this huge problem.
Well, it's like a water company. It's like a water company that's, if you help me with the analogy here, loses 7% of its water through leakage, ladies and gentlemen. That's the conventional estimate about how much is lost through government programs, government expenditures, is 7% through waste, fraud, and abuse. You know, why isn't Congress cracking down, trying to minimize that number? Well, I think it's got too much on its plate. It's trying to pass these ambitious national energy taxes. It's trying to take over our government, over our health care program. There's a Freudian slip there. Now our government health care. And it's passing these huge spending packages.
I can
It's
see
doing all.
I can see the look on the faces of the federal employees there. They were as hurt as anything. They had no help at all. You could see it. It just. Yeah, that was it.
Well, it's the job of members. It's the job of members of Congress to hold hearings on these kinds of issues, and then to take some action after the hearings. And we hear this come up election after election: waste, fraud, and abuse. There are always opportunities in departments and organizations as large as our federal government to squeeze out more of this. This is one of the supervisory roles of a member of Congress. It's something, you know, as we try and ensure that every dollar spent is spent wisely, that all have a role in it, sir. Now, if we take that 7% figure that I cited earlier, the conventional estimate as to how much money is lost through waste, fraud, and abuse in a government program, 7% of that $787 billion stimulus package, $1 trillion with interest payments, it's about $55 billion. That's just one piece of legislation. $55 billion lost through waste, fraud, and abuse on the stimulus package. That's how bad this problem is. So it's a real important issue, sir. And during tough times, it should be high on the list to address it. Yes, Ms.
They've had billions and maybe hundreds of billions of dollars in the stimulus money that they know have gone to non-existent zip codes. So why don't they know where the money went, other than they're probably not looking for where it went? But billions of dollars go to non-existent zip codes, and I just assume there are a lot of pockets in Washington that have zip code numbers.
Well,
People in prison got checks.
Yeah, the question about waste and the stimulus, there was so much waste. I mean, originally this was touted as a job creation scheme, right? It was going to save or create millions of jobs. If you look at the state of Indiana alone, and look at the number of jobs that recovery.gov estimates were saved or created, very, very few. Really, it's pretty pathetic. And does anyone venture a guess how much each job saved or created in the state of Indiana cost through stimulus funding? $150,000 here. It's like Price is Right.
250.
350?
250K.
250. Another estimate. 750. Not quite that. No, sir. It was a far more modest.